All right, let's dive into one of the most powerful little books you'll ever read, George Orwell's Animal Farm. We're going to break down exactly why this story, which seems to be about a bunch of talking animals, is actually one of the most important and frankly dangerous political warnings ever written.
So, you look at the cover, you hear the title, you might think it's a simple fable, right? A story about farm animals who decide to kick out their human farmer. But what's really going on underneath? Well, it's a savage, brilliant warning about how power works, how corruption takes root, and just how easily a dream can turn into a nightmare. And today, we're going to decode that warning piece by piece.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the why, the world Orwell was writing in. Then we'll jump into the rebellion itself. We'll meet the key players, the pigs, the horses, all of them. Then the big reveal, decoding who they really are. After that, we'll get into the big themes, and we'll wrap it all up with the absolute essentials you need for any exam.
Okay, first things first. To really truly get Animal Farm, you've got to understand the world it came from. You have to see the political firestorm that Orwell was living through and writing about.
So get this, Orwell himself subtitled his book, A Fairy Story. Now, why would he do that? Well, it's a brilliant, kind of twisted move. Think about it. Fairy tales are supposed to be simple, innocent stories for kids. By using that format, Orwell makes the brutal, dark, very adult reality he's describing feel even more shocking. It's that contrast that gives the book its incredible bite.
And that brutal reality, it was the Russian Revolution of 1917. It began with so much hope, a dream of overthrowing a cruel czar to create a society where everyone was equal. But that dream soured and turned into the totalitarian nightmare of Joseph Stalin, a regime that had total, terrifying control over its people. And here's the crucial part. Orwell was a socialist. He believed in the dream of the revolution. He wrote this book out of sheer horror, watching the ideals he cared about get twisted and destroyed by a hunger for absolute power. Okay, so with that historical backdrop in mind, let's see how it all plays out on the farm. Here's the whole story, the rise and fall of the rebellion in 5 critical moments.
It all kicks off with this beautiful dream of an animal paradise, which sparks a rebellion that actually works. They kick out the farmer, Mr. Jones, and for a little while, it's a utopia. But then, a power struggle erupts between 2 of the pigs, Napoleon and Snowball. Napoleon wins, brutally, and seizes total control. From that point on, it's just a downward spiral into lies, fear, and dictatorship until we get to that chilling final scene where the new bosses look exactly like the old ones they overthrew.
Now, this whole story hinges on its characters. And let's be clear, these are not just animals. Every single one is a clever symbol, a stand-in for the real people and groups who were part of the Russian Revolution. Let's meet the cast. At the very center of it all, you've got this epic showdown between Napoleon and Snowball. Snowball is the true believer, the brilliant speaker, the one who wants to make the farm better for everyone. Napoleon, he couldn't care less about the ideals. He is cunning, he is ruthless, and he only wants one thing: power. He uses brute force to get it, chasing Snowball off the farm and turning him into a ghost, an enemy to be blamed for everything that goes wrong. So, how does a tyrant like Napoleon keep control? Well, he's got a secret weapon, his mouthpiece, a pig named Squealer. Squealer is the ultimate spin doctor. He can convince you that black is white. He is a master at twisting language and messing with the animals' memories until they don't know what's real anymore. Except for one thing, Napoleon is always right. He is, essentially, the minister of propaganda. And then there's Boxer, the horse. Boxer. He is the absolute heart and soul of the farm. He's incredibly strong, unbelievably loyal, and works harder than anyone. His personal mottos are, "I will work harder," and "Napoleon is always right." He represents the working people, the proletariat, who pour their hearts into the revolution, but are tragically exploited and, in the end, betrayed by the very leaders they put all their trust in. And you can't forget Benjamin, the old, cynical donkey. Here's the thing about Benjamin. He gets it. He sees through all the pigs' lies, but he does absolutely nothing. His attitude is basically, life is miserable, it's always been miserable, and it'll always be miserable. So what's the point? He represents the smart people, the intellectuals, who see the truth, but just don't act. Okay, so we've met the characters, we know the plot. Now for the really cool part. Let's peel back the layers and crack the code
Let's match these farm animals directly to the real historical figures they represent.
Let's start at the top. Napoleon, our ruthless pig dictator who takes over through fear and violence, he is a direct stand-in for the Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. It's a one-to-one match.
So if Napoleon is Stalin, what about his rival, Snowball, the brilliant idealist who gets exiled and is then painted as the ultimate enemy of the state? Well, that's Leon Trotsky, Stalin's real-life political rival, who was also exiled from the Soviet Union and eventually assassinated.
But a dictator can't rule alone. He needs enforcers. And that's where Napoleon's pack of vicious dogs comes in. The dogs he raised himself to be his personal bodyguards, they are a terrifying parallel to Stalin's secret police, the NKVD, who used pure terror and public executions to crush any and all opposition.
So you can see the brilliant historical parallel. But how did Orwell make this warning so timeless and so powerful? He used some incredible literary techniques to show us just how easily power, lies, and especially language can be used to control us.
The key to the whole book is this one literary device, allegory. An allegory is basically a story that's working on two levels at once. On the surface, yeah, it's about animals on a farm. But on that deeper level, every single character, every event is a symbol for something real. Animal Farm is the perfect allegory for the Russian Revolution and how it was corrupted. Now let's look at one of the scariest themes, propaganda. Squealer is the master, and he has a playbook. Step 1, confuse everyone. He throws around complicated words and endless statistics that no one can possibly follow. Step 2, gaslight them. He constantly makes the animals question their own memories, saying things like, "Are you sure you remember that correctly?" And the final, most terrifying step, he rewrites history, literally changing the 7 commandments painted on the barn wall, one by one, until they mean the complete opposite of what they originally said. Okay, we're in the home stretch. Let's pull all this together and boil it down to the absolute must-know takeaways. If you're writing an essay or prepping for an exam on Animal Farm, this is your cheat sheet. If you memorize only one quote from this book, please make it this one. This is what's left at the very end, the single final commandment. It is the perfect summary of how the revolution's ideals were completely destroyed. It's a sentence that makes no logical sense, but in the world of politics and power, it's terrifyingly true. A total masterpiece of satire. So, here are your core themes. Number 1, power corrupts. We see that absolute power corrupts absolutely with Napoleon. Number 2, language is power. The pigs prove that if you control the language, you control reality. 3, the betrayal of revolution. Orwell shows how the most noble ideas can be twisted and betrayed from the inside. And finally, class control. The animals get rid of one ruling class, the humans, only to see a new, even more ruthless one, the pigs, take their place. And it all leads to this final, devastating image. The other animals are looking through the farmhouse window. Inside, the pigs are playing cards with the human farmers. And Orwell writes that the animals look from pig to man and from man to pig and from pig to man again, but it was already impossible to say which was which. It's a bone-chilling end, and it leaves us with a question that hangs in the air long after you finish the book. When a revolution goes wrong, what have you really changed?